This is a short video. I just wanted to highlight a few things. I had the opportunity to do the video because of what I'm doing here at one of our own ponds. My mom and dad built this pond back in the late 70s, early 80s. So it's over 40 years old. I've cleaned it out a couple times like this. This is an example of the soil is just soft enough that erosion is pretty bad. We have a big aerator in here that makes a lot of ripples. Seasons, everything changes and makes erosion. That's part of what the situation is here. I've already went around the track hoe and I've thrown dirt back up. But before I'd done that, you could have seen where the bank was eroded back in just from water erosion, wind, and just general activity. The soil here is fairly soft, didn't have a real good hard clay base, held water, but it just kind of eroded kind of quickly. The other thing I wanted to show, I'm down on clay where I'm standing here. This is all clay right there. This is muck, this is clay. But what I've got here, just wanted to give you an example of a number of things. One, erosion. A lot of this is actually organic waste. A lot of fish manure. Now, this is a situation where we're commercial. We raise a lot of fish. We run a lot of fish through here. We're feeding a lot of fish, so it's going to build up much quicker than well in a normal farm pond. But part of the reason I push the beneficial bacteria, as I talk about in my other videos, and bottom aeration is to help to prevent this. Now, if I would have used more bacteria, I wouldn't have as much muck here. I still would have had erosion. That's some of the problem I still would have experienced. It just wouldn't have been that deep. But you can see what we got here. Give you an example. I'm 6 foot tall, and you can see how much muck I got. Probably 2.5 feet of muck. And so this is just all organic waste with a little bit of dirt mixed in. So that's where using beneficial bacteria help to prevent that. And in the case that you decide you want to do a restoration of your pond where you want to dig the thing out, this is also why I'm doing the video, is to give you an example of one way you can do this. Before I go to cleaning a pond out, first thing I do, drain the water clear out. Now, a lot of guys will try to go in and dredge them without taking the water out. And basically, it's like eating soup with a fork. You don't move, you move a lot of slop and a lot of water, but not a lot of mud, and you can't see what you're doing. So, yeah, summertime is the best time to do this kind of stuff. So I drained this thing down after we took the last fish out. I stockpiled 8,000 to 10,000 pounds of catfish, big catfish in here every year for several years, plus everything else we've dumped in here over the years. So it's getting to the point where it's getting a lot of mud in it. When you walk in through the nets and stuff, I could feel the mud sinking in, and I seen the erosion, and my bank was getting close to the road because of erosion too. So I'm going to have less surface acreage and more depth when I get done, because of erosion brought all that stuff down and made it a wider surface. So first thing I do, take the fish out, drain it down, get the rest of the fish out, let it sit dry. This is set dry in here for maybe 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. Now right now we're in July, pushing towards August. So that's a good time of year to try to do this stuff. But you drain it down, and when it's this time of year, it's this hot, it'll start cracking. You can see the cracks in the mud where it's separated here. Now this is still soft, but you can just about walk on it. But it's solid enough that I can take track hoe and throw it up here and get it to dry faster. What I'll do is I've already taken and thrown a bunch of slop up on the bank. That'll dry out. And I'll take this slop and throw it up again too. Keep stirring it and working it till it dries out. After it's good and dry, then I'll take my dozer, and I got wide tracks on it, smaller dozer. I'll go around here, I'll dress it up the rest of the way, get it all fixed up, and let it fill back up with water. Guys with brand new ponds, typically as soon as they put water in, they're going to grow a little bit of algae, planktonic bloom, a little bit of filamentous algae, a little bit of root end vegetation. Your nutrient loads are going to be fairly low, where your vegetation doesn't grow too prolifically, your water clarity is pretty good. So you're going to use less beneficial bacteria to keep them good. Situation like this, where you're taking the mud out, I'm actually going to use most of the stuff just to reform the bank. If I got excess mud, I'll throw it out on the other side and use it to work on the other side of the dam. But in a situation like this, it's still going to be fairly nutrient rich, but it's going to be more or less mixed in with the dirt and to make my dam back again. So you'd still want to use beneficial bacteria, but a little bit more aggressive than you would if you were building a brand new pond. So basically, that's the biggest thing about this video. I wanted to give people an example. If they decide to take that step to where they want to drain and dredge the pond, this is one way I suggest doing it. Drain it down, let it sit dry, let the mud get till it's solid like this, and start dipping it out. And the other example basically I wanted to show is how much muck you can build up, plus the erosion. So there's mud and muck combination there, but you can see where I'm standing on clay and how deep this is. This is what can happen in your pond. So ways to prevent this from happening. When you build a pond, if you can afford it, line the pond from the waters, from a foot or two above the water to a couple feet below the water with some kind of big rocks, so you stop erosion. Plant some cattails, water irises, something like that to hold the dirt in place. Make your banks a 3-to-1 slope. So every 3 feet you go out, you drop down a foot. Your banks are not so steep. If you go to 2-to-1 slope, erosion is going to be a lot worse because it's going to the gravity is going to work against you. So make a 3-to-1 slope, riprap around the outside to hold it in place. Plant some cattails, water irises wherever you can. You can control those kind of plants and they help to hold erosion. But building the pond right to begin with helps to stop that erosion. That would help this situation. And the other thing is, start using beneficial bacteria right from the get-go. A year or so after you stock the first fish, start using a bacteria breakdown to keep that organic waste from building up like this. These two things alone, the riprap and the cattails, would help to stop the erosion, and beneficial bacteria would help to stop that. But if you ever do get in a situation where it's too late, it's an old pond, or your banks are compromised where you need to rebuild the pond, drain it, dry it, dredge it, and you're going to need either equipment like what you got in the background here, the Chaco, or you're going to need a bulldozer, or both. It all just depends on the volume of the pond, how big it is, how far you got to move the mud, and all that kind of stuff. This is a fairly simple one because I can go around the edges, throw it up, and reach most of it. And I'll go back in here tomorrow and take the rest of that mud and throw it up against the bank, stir it, and I just try to stir it and get it so it dries out. If you don't do that, as thick as it is, it'll build up a crust of maybe 6 inches or so. You'll seal it up, and it'll be hard for it to dry the rest of the way down through. It might dry out, but it may take 4 or 5 or 6 months, or even run into the next year where next thing you know, you got grass growing on it, and pretty soon that grass locks it up, and you never do get it dried out all the way. So if you decide to do something like that, those are some tips I just wanted to pass on to you. So if you decide to do it, you know what to look forward to. So check us out. Check my videos out. If you go to our website, fendersfishhatchery.com, you'll find 20-some videos on there that you can see as far as pond stocking, vegetation control, pond construction, bacteria, all that kind of stuff. So check that stuff out. You got questions, give me a call. Thanks for watching.